What's going on, guys? Ethan Kidd here, and so I want to talk about the CMA as a recent announcement and reaction to the Xbox Activision deal and why I feel like they misunderstood what was going on. So, for those who don't know, the CMA has said that they don't think the Activision deal is a good deal, as it makes Microsoft, too competitive, and it makes them so they basically would have raised prices and says for games and consoles and have unfair advantage in cloud. Let me explain my take on this. My take on this is quite simple. I think the CMA is stupid. I think they don't understand what they just did because, right, with the UK in general, right now, because we left the EU, because of Brexit, and because of overspending by the Tory party, the UK isn't looking that good for investment within tech companies, within communities. It's not the best place to be. Companies like Aardman Animations have spoken about the fact that they're not getting the financing they need to actually produce content from the UK anymore, and they may have to move overseas, and that's a big problem. Now, Microsoft has several game studios in the UK, those including Playground Games and Rare, right? I think there's a few others, but they're the two ones I know off by heart. And think about that, they're helping investing in the UK economy by producing games in the UK. Now, big problem with the Activision deal is obviously getting Call of Duty and obviously Blizzard and all that sort of stuff and King, and there's tons to it. But the CMA seems to have ignored the fact that it expands Microsoft's ability to compete in the mobile market. Which, fun fact, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, they're not big in mobile. None of them are, right? The biggest mobile publishers are companies like Zynga, who are owned by Take-Two Interactive. King's obviously quite because of Activision. But then you're competing with other companies like EA, which, funnily enough, EA and Take-Two are two of the biggest mobile publishers. Plus, you've got companies like Netflix getting involved in gaming. Netflix has obviously been buying up studios. Obviously, a lot of their games are currently only on mobile, but obviously, them owning games like Oxenfree and stuff and Crazy Growth, and it's just sort of like Netflix is looking at growing their gaming division. I've got a whole channel dedicated to Netflix games. I'll leave a link to it in the description. But you've got Netflix games. You've got the mobile market. You've got the PC market as well. And companies like Valve and Nintendo agreeing to contracts for Call of Duty for 10 years. Not to mention as well, they mentioned cloud gaming. Well, to be fair, from what I know, Microsoft lets Nvidia stream their games via Nvidia GeForce Now if you buy them on Steam. So I don't see the problem. Oh, because Game Pass would have the games. So what? Now, another thing that's been thrown around is obviously Microsoft would own too many first-person shooter games, and Sony wouldn't be locked out of that market. Well, no, they wouldn't. They've got games like Killzone and Resistance that they could easily revive. They still got games like Battlefield, which is, fun fact, at one point in time, Battlefield actually outsold Call of Duty. That was back in 2016 with Battlefield 1 outsold Call of Duty that year. It's just Battlefield's not been really competing since because DICE doesn't seem to know what they're doing with the franchise. And then you got other games, you got other issues like console prices and game prices will go up, which Sony already did, by the way. Sony did it first, and suddenly they said Microsoft will do it. Not being funny, but I'm pretty sure Microsoft has some common sense with people running the company and would understand that even if they need to put prices up, they're not going to put them to a point where the systems are unaffordable by a lot of people because they want to sell systems. They want to sell systems, they want to sell games. Not to mention, right? One big thing they've tried to point out is like, well, we'd allow a deal if they sold off either Blizzard or Activision part, or they sold Call of Duty. Why? Why is that? Why is that an issue? Microsoft hasn't offered to make a contract with Sony for Call of Duty to stay on the platform. They've offered, to make concessions with the EU government. I don't understand why the CMA is against it. I don't understand. In fact, if anything, the CMA should be happy about a deal like this happening because, well, Microsoft already has studios in the UK. So it's more continued investment in the UK studios and UK productions, which the UK is struggling right now because of Brexit, because of the Tories screwing the country over, because of COVID. And suddenly the CMA is like, oh no, we don't think it's not fair. But they've not really given a reason. Now, what we're going to say, I don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully, we do see we do see Microsoft be able to come out and sort this out. Because here's the thing, like I kind of feel like if the EU and the FTC eventually end up passing the deal, I don't think the CMA matters because the CMA is biased anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm hoping Microsoft can get this all sorted because personally, I think would be better for consumers if a company like Activision, who has a whole history of the workforce and whatnot, it feels better to me if they're owned by companies like Microsoft, who obviously would have the unions involved and have the studios unionize under Microsoft. That would be better for their obviously people working within Activision. And it's just like the CMA seems to have missed some blatant points that would have been important, especially when you consider that Sony's already the console market leader. They make more money than Microsoft and Activision combined. So I don't see how the CMA can justify saying, well, it makes it's not a fair deal when Sony's already the biggest, well, game maker. You got Tencent, which is also makes more money on games than Microsoft, and I don't understand how it's a problem. If someone can explain it to me, but don't sit there and be like, well, you're just salty because you're an Xbox fan. I'll be honest, I don't really care, right? My biggest problem is the CMA, it's the UK government. As a British citizen, I've hated the government for years because of the Tory party and how they've kind of come in and screwed this great country over. We're not Great Britain anymore, we're just Britain. Anyway, guys, I've been EFK. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, do that sort of stuff. And I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.